All right. Hey, everybody. This is Craig Garber. Welcome to Everyone Loves Guitar. And man, we got a great guest today with Dan Mongrain, of course, the guitar player from Voivod. Dan has been requested by a number of people over the years to come on the show, most recently Perry Gray. So I want to thank Perry for pushing nail that broke the straw that broke the camel's back. And I'm so glad I got a hold of Dan. He's super intelligent. He's incredibly musical and talented. And we're going to have a great conversation. All right. Dan, cliff notes on Dan. Most well known as a guitar player of Canadian prog metal band Voivod. Voivod's released 15 albums, winning back-to-back Juno Awards for their last two records, The Wake and Synchro-Anarchy, which are great albums. I encourage you to listen to them. Both of those were Juno Awards for Best Metal Album of the Year, and Dan's writing was featured heavily on both of those records. Dan was asked to join the band after their original guitarist, Denise Piggy D'Amour, passed away in 2008. Dan's also the co-founder, guitarist, and vocalist of the prog-death metal band Martyr, which he co-founded with his brother at age 14. And that band, Dan was in that band from 1990 to 2012. Dan's also a well-respected session and touring player in Canada who's worked with over 80 bands and artists in a wide variety of genres, including blues, rock, hip-hop, classical, prog, and metal. His latest cover band is a tribute to progressive music from the 70s. It's called Jurassic Rock. Again, check out, Dan's got a great cover of him playing Deep Purple and the song Focus, which is such a killer song on YouTube. And he's playing a Strat there too, man. That was nice to see. Dan graduated from University of Montreal with a degree in jazz interpretation, and as if his schedule isn't busy enough already, he also teaches jazz and pop guitar in theory at a college in Quebec. Which, could you say the name? Because I'm going to destroy the whole French language.
It's just it's an acronym, so it's called Cégep, but basically it's just a college before university, between secondary school, and it's only in Quebec.
Okay, cool. Also, make sure definitely check out a video of Dan playing City Nights by Alan Holdsworth on YouTube. It is really phenomenal. Let me tell you a quick story before we get started. So Dan was a huge fan of Voivod as a kid before he joined the band. And when I said to him, I wasn't 100% familiar with Voivod's catalog. I've listened to an occasional song here and there over the years. And I said to him, hey, can you give me some albums that I should listen to? And I was so impressed with his answer, because he gave me 3 albums before he was even in the band. He goes, look, this is really important. And, you know, it wasn't about like, this is me. And I thought that was really cool. It showed his passion for the band and the music. And I listened to it, and I was able to see the progression and the changes of the band. And then he, recommended, the last 2 records, The Wake and Synchro-Anarchy. So I thought that was very impressive when you did that. So, a lot of people are all about me. So yeah, you weren't like that. Anyway, man, thank you so much for your time. I appreciate you coming on the show. It's good to.
Thanks for having me. It's a real pleasure.
My pleasure. All right, let's dig in, man. You started playing guitar at age 12, and this is mind-blowing how talented you are. You founded Martyr at 14, and you are really a pretty skilled player at that point. So my question is, how did you get so good so quickly?
Oh, my God. Thanks. I didn't feel I was that good, but we learned music, piano lessons at a younger age, like around 7, 8. Lasted a couple years. I said we because my brother was in the band as well, and so I wanted to do like him. He started before me, and my mother, still at 80-year-old, sing in the choir.
Oh, that's
classical
awesome.
music. So she was already into choir, and she used to play the organ at masses when she was young, when the masses were every day in Latin and obligatory in her village. And so music was always there from my mother's side, and we started to play the piano. And I would fool the teacher by playing by ear all the songs that I was told to learn, but I could read some of the notes, but then I bullshit my way in the song, and she didn't notice until she put a music sheet in front of my eyes, and I couldn't really read it efficiently. So the ear was developed through singing with my mother, and she will tell me if the note was wrong and all that. And
Oh,
so,
that's awesome.
yeah, at an early age. And then I let the piano thing because I was not very disciplined to practice, and the kind of music didn't really appeal to me. So I stopped for a while, and when the video clips started to appear on TV, on the equivalent of Power Hour or Much Music, or and rock bands started to be more available through the TV. We didn't have cable, so there was a channel, distorted channel. We couldn't see the image, but we could hear the music. So we tuned in on that channel, and I could see bands like it was the beginning of Guns N' Roses and Metallica video era, and there was some Iron Maiden and Celtic Frost and bands from Europe, and we really started to like that style of music. So we decided at some point to let go of our sculpted wooden fake guitars as a kid and stop pretending. And since we had a bit of knowledge, musical knowledge, we gathered some money, and we could buy our own first instruments. My first guitar was very, very cheap, under $200, and it was. But with my economy, and I didn't have enough money for a strap,
Sure.
But that's where we started to fool around with it, and then I that to answer the question more directly, that became my main focus. Like 8-12 hours a day,
Right.
and I would go to school and come back to dinner just to play 1 hour, and then go back and come back and play, and just it became an obsession.
Right.
And that's how I think at 14 we were able to play our first show as a original band with a few covers, but it was dedication 100%, all
And
the
your
time.
brother was obviously as dedicated as you were.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. We were practicing separately in our own rooms, and we didn't have amps for the first year, so we would use the neck of the guitar, like the headstock,
Right.
and put it on the wall, because the wall has air between the cheap rock and
Yeah.
and it could amplify a little bit the sound, or the desk or a cardboard box.
That's
So
wild.
we used it. I discovered it by accident. Oh, if I put my headstock on the cardboard box, I can hear myself louder because of the vibration. And so after 1 year, we could buy amps, and it took a while to discover the distortion, how it worked.
Right.
I didn't know it. You had to put the drive at 10 and then the volume at 1. But when I discovered it, I annoyed everybody. Because I used to play the same lick over and over and over and over and over. It drive everybody mad in the place, and until I got it, and that was the kind of obsession I had to
That's cool.
improve. And
Hey man,
we
how do you think
were,
how do you think that would go over today if you told some kid just getting started, "Hey man, I'm going to get you a cardboard box."
right, yeah,
Different time,
it's a
different era, probably would not
different
be
times.
as well received. That's awesome, man. Was your mom tough? Like, like was it like working for your parents? Because when you work for your parents, if they're self-employed, like I've been self-employed pretty long time, and all my kids have worked for me, and they did not enjoy it. Was it the same thing? Like, was your mom a tough teacher with you guys?
She was not a teacher, but she was not tough with us. She was not involved in the lessons that much. Maybe they were a bit tough about the time we had to practice piano. We had a timer machine,
Like the egg
and
timer.
I used to turn it so it took 10 minutes less when I
Yeah,
played the piano. But they were very straight on that. But that's it, I guess. And when my mom noticed that we practiced so much, around the age of 14, I started to have private lessons with a guitar teacher that opened my mind and really opened to many kind of guitar playing that I didn't know, like the shredding type, Satriani and Vive and Malmsteen, and I studied those guys and I learned the modes and the scales, and oh wow, it was all new and exciting. So I learned a lot of techniques, and that's around that age that we played our first show with the band.
What were some of the challenges early on as far as getting Martyr moving? And my real question is, how did you have the coping skills and how did you deal with these challenges at that young of an age? Like, how did you work through all that?
It was a matter of context, actually. The family life was not easy, and I think music was a refuge for us to survive, to cope with the situation. So that's why I put so much of my focus and attention to it, because it was a savior for me. And it was the only place I could be myself and good and constructive. It could have been drugs. It could have been going out with guys and do something stupid in the street. It was music. I was lucky enough. It was music. And that's why we were always encouraged by our mother to, she knew where we were. We were practicing the guitar in the house.
Right. You can't get in trouble when you're practicing guitar in your room. Yes.
Exactly. I think it's called resilience, like when you take a bad situation and you try to make something good, but it was quite innocent and not conscious.
Yeah.
But I'm glad we were, my mother is really, really strong in that situation, was really strong about keeping us out of trouble, but without us really knowing it, at the same time. So it was that those circumstances that brought us to really develop and focus on something constructive. Yeah.
Now I know why you like my bio. So we have stuff in common.
Yeah. That's true.
I'll tell you a funny story about that. Yeah, man. I'll tell you a really funny story. My daughter, who does, none of my kids live at home anymore. My daughter's 23, and she sent me a text the other night. She said something like, Dad, now that I'm an adult, I'm realizing all these things you told me were correct. And she said, one of them is, I never understood it. You always used to tell me nothing good ever happens outside after midnight. And she goes, I really get that now. And I was like, just kind of like what you're talking about. You try to give some protection or whatever, and they got to, so.
And at the same time, she experienced it.
Right.
So you have to experience it, but if you don't have any advice before, maybe you can get lost. But if you have someone who told you in advance something that maybe at the time can sound like how do you say, a paternalist or but you're still saying it, and then there's this moment that
it was very rewarding for me to hear that, because you never know what's going through their head. So I was happy, like, oh good, so maybe she'll listen to me. I don't know if she's listening to me now about things she's doing now, but like you said, everybody's got to experience stuff on their own.
Yeah, important.
What was your first break with Martyr, and how did that break come about?
I think we created the break. It was not easy. Early 90s metal scene was the biggest and the biggest and the weakest at the same time, because you had Metallica, Black Album, but then the grunge took over.
Yes.
And you had only a couple of bands that would be on top of the world in the metal scene, but the rest of the scene was suffering a lot. I remember there was no more local metal shows. The 80s was over, grunge took over, and we arrived exactly in that, how do you call it, bottom of the wave, so to speak. And so we started to practice a lot and build our own world, compositions, and put some covers just to learn how to play as well. but we had to organize shows, organize events, be entrepreneur, really. But I didn't think of it that way. Just wanted to play. So,
Yeah.
but it was like, okay, we had have to talk to locals, um, venues, and to organize a show. And I was not even 18, so maybe 15, 16. So we rented a place, and rented a sound, like a PA system, and asked a friend's father of a friend who do sound, to do the sound for the gig. And we could sell tickets enough to pay the stuff in advance. It was all, secondary school kids that bought the tickets. And we made sure that it was an all age place, alcohol, no alcohol. And even the electrician of the place didn't want to plug the PA electricity. So I said, I'll do it. 16 years old, I don't know anything.
Right.
And we had to create the posters and photocopy them and put them all over around the city with tape, around the poles and around the businesses. So that's how it happened. Really, there was no help for anybody. Maybe a couple bucks here and there from parents, but that's how dedicated we were. I remember when we started with Martyr, at the very beginning, we couldn't find a drummer. We didn't know anybody having a drum set, and some guy at school pretend to be a drummer, and he said he could play the drums, but he didn't have a drum set. So we gathered $60 to rent a drum kit for a month, and I realized when he started to play that he didn't know how to play.
Oh my God.
So I listened to some records, and I've learned how to play, to show him how to play, in order to have a band. So I started to play like For Whom the Bell Tolls and stuff like that, early
Oh my
Metallica
God.
songs. And the hi-hat's doing this, and the snare. Okay, because I knew about rhythm a little bit, but I discovered how it worked, and I had to teach the guy the first beats, and then we could play. So creating your own opportunities, really, that's how we learned. There was no big break or first break. I think it was part of the process to create it, but it was very innocent at the same time. We just wanted to get out and play and do a band, like that's it. That was the motivation.
Yeah. So you didn't realize how hard you were actually working, because it was just, hey, I wanted to just do this gig and I got to just get this shit done to get that done.
Yeah.
Wow. That's awesome.
Looking
Man.
back at it, I don't know if now I could do this, but back then it was like, yeah.
That's awesome. What a great story. Voivod is known for Piggy's use of dissonant chords, right? But I listened to some of the older Martyr stuff, and you were playing chords like that back then. Was that like Piggy's influence on your playing, or was that just the commonality? Or
definitely, Voivod is probably the band I've listened to the most in my entire life. All genre mixed, so it became kind of a musical part of my musical DNA, part of my musical journey. Like my teachers, Piggy and Voivod are my musical teacher, songwriter, teacher. Complementary parts, functioning bass and guitar talking to each other, dialogue, how to have a nice simple melody over a chaotic harmony underneath it. Snake is a genius as writing or singing beautiful melodic lines over strange and very strange chords. And it was his only band. It's his only band, so he's always been in that environment. So his ear is used to that, and so it was a big influence on songwriting, dissonance, and twists and turns, like unpredictability in music. That's always something that up to this day I'm looking 4 when I listening to new music, I discover new bands, I want to be surprised. That's what Voivod gave to me. I want to have a big surprise in the middle of the song. I want to be destabilized by the music. That's why I'm a big fan of Cardiacs as well, a band from the UK that's completely insane from the 70s, 80s. They existed until 2008. And and a contemporary composer as well, in classical music. And so Voivod has been maybe the trigger of that kind of thought, that kind of perception of music, and wanting to be surprised all the time. And their influence was from the 70s prog and the punk movement,
who was
and the
there?
new wave of British heavy metal.
Yes, the punks. It was interesting listening to the progression of the changes to the band of the albums that you gave me, going from like real punk thrash, and then it's really amazing to see like evolutions of bands sometimes, because it must be so rewarding when you're in the band to actually participate in this and then look back and, see the growth, which is kind of cool.
It's crazy. They had very different taste in music. Like the singer was more of a punky vibe, and the guitarist and the drummer were into Pink Floyd, Van der Graaf Generator, Genesis, Emerson, Lake and Palmer, and Gentle Giant and stuff like that. And there was some electronic music involved as well, Kraftwerk and some other kind of music. But all mixed together, it became this thing called Voivod, which was really even early on different than other metal bands, from different sound from the Bay Area, different sound because in Quebec, progressive music was really big in the 70s. You had bands like Gentle Giant playing around Montreal, but not going to the States. Genesis as well, and Pink Floyd and all those bands, yes, was not that big in the US, and we had our local progressive rock band as well, like Slush and Dionysos and Pollen and Octobre and Harmonium, and there's a bunch of great progressive bands from the 70s in Quebec. It's all in French.
Okay.
So maybe it didn't cross some of the borders because of that, but it's amazing how talented and great the bands are, and I'm rediscovering it right now because I was born in 76.
Sure.
So I discovered prog through Voivod and went back in time to discover more and more and more, and became a fan of those bands as well. So I discovered what influenced the guys of Voivod afterwards.
Awesome story, man. Thank you. There's a video of you on YouTube, and you're like 18 or 19. And first of all, it's so weird to see you with a telly. But you're playing a telly, and you are fucking tearing it up, man. And it sounds like kind of like Satriani sort of stuff, And it was like very, I think you had a little. You're like, listen, I'm really sorry. I just did this. And I'm like, sorry. I'm like, shit, I'd like to be able to like play that at my finest moment. And this guy just like rolled out of bed or something. He's like apologizing. And I watched a lot of the videos of you in general for this interview, and your work ethic and your commitment to excellence is clearly something that's important to you and something I have a lot of respect for. And I actually think it's a good indicator of defining the quality of a person. Like when you meet someone with a good work ethic, they're usually a really good person, because they're not looking for shortcuts, they're just good people. But I was curious, how did those values come about for you? And I know hearing some of the early story, I'm starting to put it together now, like you had no choice. But talk about that for a minute if you can.
Well, just going back, the picture with the telly you saw was a recent picture in a store in Japan with a mini child guitar. So I
Yeah.
didn't really play that guitar. It was just the picture, but
You know
and
what's funny? I don't mean to interrupt you. I said, God, this guy must be 7 feet tall because I was going to ask you that before we started. I'm like, hey, you're a big. That thing looked like a little baby.
yeah,
Now
yeah,
it
yeah,
was
yeah.
a
It was
baby.
tiny.
I was like, holy shit, this guy's gigantic.
And I bought one a bit bigger than that for traveling, but then I gave it to a kid that started to play and all that. Yeah, that session was just a friend of mine. But he bought a console with a recording device. So I want to try it. Are you available that day? So I rented a drum kit. I played the drums and write the song in my head at the same time, and then I played the bass, pretty much improvised, and then I played the guitar, and that was it. It was really improvised,
It's
that one. But
phenomenal, man. It was
so
incredible.
having a copy of it was when I found it again in my computer. Oh fuck! I did this. I didn't remember, but thanks. It was fun to do, and I was listening to a lot of Satriani and Vi back then, so I'm sure you can hear the influence. For the work ethic, I don't really know. It's pretty. I think I'm organized, but I'm chaotic at the same time. So I make lists of what I should do in a day, and the lists are pretty much always too long, so I cannot finish them. But yeah, exactly.
That's my
Like
short
this.
notebook.
Yeah.
I've got another one in a big notebook.
But yeah, it's a way to remember what's our priority and what I have to do. And but when it comes to practice, I practice a lot of years, more organized and all that, even in university. But the time when you get older and older, it seems that the time is flying faster, and it's hard to get a hold of time. Really, you
Definitely.
have to take it. You have to sit down and decide. I'm not waiting for when I have time. I take the time, and that's a ever never-ending fight. And nowadays, my practice are really towards more of a knowledge of the deep knowledge of the instrument rather than technique. But I try to combine both, like practice something which will make your finger move, but also think and learn and have a different perspective on the neck. And it's a lot of back to basic kind of thinking. Sometimes I play in like I remember in 2020 or 21, during the apocalypse, like I say, uh, many times, I played 1 year in C major.
Just that was your chord for the year.
Yeah, I played everything in C major, no modulation, and I've learned so much doing that.
Wow. So you
I've
really
learned
learned how
so
to
much.
work within very tight individual positions on the neck, how to make something out of limited space.
Limited space, and then you transpose the limited space in different area of the neck, and then you connect them together, and you learn all your diatonic arpeggios and all the ways to do it, and create voicings that you can go up and down the neck with choice of strings or choice of intervals, and quartal harmony intervals all over the neck. And when you know it in C major, it's easier to know it in any other key because it's the same neck.
Sure.
On the guitar, that's the beauty of the guitar. It's that you can transpose anything just moving your hand. It's not
Yeah.
like the piano or a saxophone or a trumpet where every position is kind of different. So I've worked on that, and also I bought a few books from Carol Kay,
The
the
bass
bass
player?
player.
Yeah.
Yeah, she's still alive and working, and she's on socials. And I had a few not conversation but comment exchange with her, and she is taking care of sending the books by herself and sending emails and all that. But she made some books in the 50s, I think, when she was a guitar teacher, and it's still available with audio, and there are some exercises in those books that are really really simple, but that's what you need in order to understand the verticality of the music, playing, thinking about harmony more than lines. In rock, we think linear. We use one scale and we shred. There's not much chord involved. But in jazz or in music that has a lot of different substitution, different kind of harmony and modulating music like jazz, you need to know your chord tones to approach them, to think in substitution over a certain harmony. And the way she explained it in those books is so simple. It's almost boring, but that's the genius of it.
Yeah.
I think when you like in Tai Chi, you can repeat the same 26 or 24 movement for a lifetime. And I've seen women in Japan, 86-year-old, in better shape than you and me.
Yeah.
Even though we're not so bad, but and repeating the same movement for a lifetime and discovering new things.
Yeah.
So back to basic for me is really important. That's where you solidify everything else.
Does she have this on a website, Carol K website?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna go check that.
carolk.com.
Great.
And on a Facebook page as well that will lead you to the website.
Thanks.
There's a DVD too. And of course, when you're in music and into teaching, and I went to university, I study. So sometimes the whole book is just the one page inside the book that you need.
Right.
The rest of the book, you understand. But sometimes it's just 2 music staff, and that's the 2 music staff that you needed to learn.
Yeah. Well, you're also at the level where, you've got a lot of knowledge already. So getting that one little nugget, realistically, that's all you can sort of expect with as long as you've been at this. But it's so valuable. I know exactly what you're saying because I'm always studying marketing stuff, and it's the same thing. It's like, people say, why are you studying that? You kind of know it. I'm like, yeah, I'm just looking for what I don't know, That's
exactly.
That's what's important to me.
And a perspective, sometimes a different perspective of what you already know.
Yes.
And it opens to another world. It's good for the brain. You can almost feel your brain cell getting excited.
Yeah. Yeah. That's how it works. I agree with you. Tell me about a time, Dan. No, let's talk about Japan, because you mentioned it already. You've been to Japan 8 times. I know you speak some Japanese as well. And you mentioned in some interviews you're an admirer of the culture there. What specifically is so different there, and why do you have so much admiration for it?
Well, it started when we went to Japan the first time. It was my second show with Voivod, believe it or not.
Oh my God,
And
how cool is that?
First time out of America, North America.
Sure.
And so we arrived there, and we arrived in Tokyo. First of all, Tokyo is not Japan. Japan is not Tokyo, but Tokyo is a different planet, really. And I was so impressed. So, so different, so much difference, so many differences and the jet lag is 12 hours, and
oh my
it hits
God.
you like a baseball bat in the afternoon, So all those elements, and die-hard fans waiting at the hotel to sign stuff, and just walking into the city, going to Akihabara, the electronic city, and then the Tokyo Tower, and then we took the metro system. But what struck me the most was the language, the musicality of the language, the sound of the language. And I've heard Japanese before, because when we grew up as kids, we had the Japanese manga shows, or the early Grandizer and stuff like that, and Ultraman, the superhero. And so we were fascinated by all this. And I did judo when I was a kid as well, and some of the name of projections, and we're all in Japanese. But the language and the intonation really struck my ear, my musical ear, I guess. And so I wanted to learn the language. And when I got back, I bought a book at the airport, basic, and I started to read it going back home, and it's all started there. And I wanted to go back, and it took 5 years. 5 years later, we went back to Japan. And then I wanted to go back again, and I started studying more and asking questions and buy more books on tour, and started to write and to learn the writing of the alphabets, and then the Chinese character, the kanji. I've learned like 300. It's not much because you need 2,000 to read the newspaper.
Wow.
But I learned the hiragana and katakana, which are the two different sound alphabet there is for foreign sounds and for Japanese sound words. So you can see when you read when a word is foreigner, because the way you write it is different alphabet.
Interesting.
So I really enjoyed learning that as well. And the pronunciation of Japanese is not so far from the pronunciation in French. The
really
all the
interesting.
And consonants and the vowels are really close sounding. So for me, it was not so hard as for the pronunciation, but it's really hard for the writing, and the logical of the language is different than French. And also the words, you have to remember there's no relation between words, So it's a very, very interesting thing to do. Learn a complete different language. And then I went back there, spend more time, 3-4 weeks, and travel into smaller cities and really have a deeper taste of Japan, meeting fishermen and going to small family restaurants sometimes, and walking and doing bicycle. And so it was more like the real Japan, really. And the politeness and the way they live, and the fact that they are always threatened by earthquake or tsunami or volcano or always natural disaster. They need each other to survive, and they're really, really organized, and it's there's a lot to learn.
The civility of the people is really impressive. Like it's almost like they realize, hey man, we got to do this together. And there's a level of respect. It seems, my perception, I have not been there, just from watching documentaries. It seems the level of respect for other humans is pretty high.
Yeah.
There's less judgment, or I don't know what it is, but it just seems like
you never know when you're going to need your neighbor.
Yeah.
You never know.
Yeah.
So you better, even if you would not be friends with your neighbor, you don't like the attitude, or it's not the kind of person you will be friendly. You never know when you're going to need.
You can still be civil.
Exactly.
Yeah, and that's always, and I've also seen, like, it's amazing. So I grew up in New York City. So you think of a New York City subway station. Then I see a subway station in Japan where you could like probably eat off the floor. It's so clean.
Yeah.
It just like the level of the level of self-responsibility that people are all willing to take to say, hey, I'm not gonna litter this thing up because some guy's cleaning it up later at night.
Exactly.
And that is really impressive. The level of personal responsibility that people take and should take. So that's really cool. Did you ever read Haruki Murakami?
I have started. Actually, that's one of my problems. I start book, I don't finish them.
Well, his books
I have a few books. I still have to read though.
In you trying to read them in Japanese?
No, it's too complex
for
me.
God.
But I have a children's book and some other books that I can read in Japanese. I have many actually, and I've read some. The children language is different. It's sometimes there's different expressions, so I have to be careful. But I have 2 books of the same author you mentioned.
Murakami.
I have to read them.
He's phenomenal, man. He's an incredible, incredible author, and just amazing. I love his stuff. And you ever see that movie Totoro?
It means it rings a bell.
It's a
Totally.
lovely movie, man. It's like I watched it with my daughter when she was a little girl. We randomly stumbled across. Just a great. It's Japanese manga.
Yeah. I don't know much about Japanese manga, except from the one I grew up with when I was younger. But I remember the character now. Yeah. I
Yeah,
didn't see it.
it was funny. And then when she moved out about 6 months ago, which I was devastated, but she was around the other day, and I said, "Hey, I saw Totoro's back on TV. Would you come over and watch it with me?"
Ah,
So
awesome.
we got to relive a moment from when she was a little girl. It was kind of cool. It's a lovely,
That's cool.
lovely, gentle movie, man.
Yeah.
I really like some of the things you said about playing. You said about we're all connected, and sometimes you feel like you're on stage and in the audience at the same time. And I'd love to hear you elaborate on that.
Well, especially with Voivod, of course, because I've been the guy in the audience. I saw them 3 or 4 times. I met Piggy before he was sick. Um, these guys are my heroes, you know. So when we started to write music together, I had the perception of being in a band for 5 years and knowing the language even deeper, and the chemistry was there. But also had the perception from outside the band, the fan wanting this kind of sound to happen, you know, preconceived perception of mine about what the band was supposed to sound like.
Interesting.
So it's kind of a bit mind-boggling because you want to write in a style, but at the same time you want to keep your own personality, and you don't want to deceive the fans, but you don't want to think about that much because it's going to influence in a, you know, it's gonna distort your distract you
Yeah.
from what you do. And so same when we play live gigs. I mean, I wish I was there and Piggy was on stage still, you know. I wish I
That's
was the
nice.
kid who's like watching the show, but at the same time, you know, I connect with the audience because I'm from the same place.
You're one of them.
Yes, and so we
That's
have this
cool.
special connection. I think uh, just recently we played in the UK. I arrived 2 days ago, and the crowd was crazy. I mean, it was packed every night, and you could feel the appreciation after almost 5 years of not playing there. It was very intense, more than usual, and the people showed their appreciation, and we always take time to go at the merch booth after the show and meet the fans and sign their stuff, and they appreciate it, and there's a lot of confidence, how do you say, confide, you know, stories from them, and their stories about getting to be a fan of Voivod a bit, and we shared the same story, and most of them now knows when I went to the music store at 12-year-old with my bicycle and paperboy money to buy the first cassette I own still, and it was a Voivod Killing Technology album.
That's wild.
And I just started to play the guitar. I didn't play the guitar yet. I was 11 actually, but you know, we share these kind of stories, and so I feel like I'm in the crowd as well.
Yeah. That was great. That was one of the nicest things I heard of musicians say and artists say. Dan, what were some of the low points or dark periods you've had to deal with in life, and how'd you get through them?
Well, the first dark period would be when I bought my first guitar, then my parent divorced, and I survived basically with, like I said earlier, with playing the guitar and being out of trouble by focusing on music. But then again, when there's some violence in your environment, you become a kind of a misfit in the social community in secondary school, and you became a bit apart from the mass, which is not a bad thing in the end. But it's hard to experience as a human being because your reality is really, really different than majority.
Yeah. And you don't have the coping
And
skills at that age to process any of that shit.
exactly. And there's probably a lot of kids like me in the same environment back then, but you only know your own reality, and
Of course.
and your drama is not the drama of anyone, and vice versa, and it doesn't compare. It can't compare. But that was like music saved me from really bad things, and it always been the case when something bad happened in my life, or when I felt terrible about myself, and ending relationships, friendships. I think that's the most difficult thing for me, like to let go of a relationship.
Sure.
It's this thing that hurts me the most in friendship, or in any kind of relationship.
Sure.
And when that happened, I have the reflex of focusing on music, and it always worked for me, pretty much. And it can have a darker side, like it can become a protection. It can become a wall to not get involved because you've been hurt. So you go in.
Dude, I understand everything you're saying right now. Yeah.
Yeah.
Totally.
And it's your tool can become your weakness.
Yeah.
So I've learned that later in life, and I still struggle. I think when you experience something in a young age that will mark your whole life, it's part of your identity. And the more I grew old, the more I don't want to fight with it. And I think it's one of the best way to deal with it is accept it. Accept that some event changed the way you are, and the more you can adapt to it and find tools, and not struggle with it, and not try to fight it. It's maybe a simple example, but when you have a scar and you're still scratching the scar, it's just gonna
get inflamed.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So it's there. I know it's there. It's there forever. So what do I do with it?
Well, the problem is when you have this as a kid, you develop certain survival skills to get through that.
Yeah.
The problem is nobody comes to you at a certain point in time and explains to you, hey, listen, these survival skills that you had, like disconnecting emotionally or protecting yourself, you don't need to have them anymore. Nobody comes and tells you that. So you go into your adulthood with these same survival skills that actually wind up alienating you, because the rest of the world isn't trying to destroy your life and kick your ass. And so this is the problem that I've had to work through my whole life and figure out, get these things together. And I've studied a lot about childhood trauma. It's typically three things happen. Number one, you become an addict of drugs, gambling, alcohol, sex, whatever. Number two, you become a people pleaser. And number three, which was me, you become a bit of a workaholic, because you say, well, I'll prove how good I am. Somebody will recognize, because you're just trying to get an attaboy. You're just trying to get a pat on the back from somebody,
That's 100% my case.
Yeah. So I was, and it's only now in the last 5 years of my life where I've backed off, and I've learned to playing guitar is a big part of that for me, because I love it so much. I'm like, man, you know what? I got to do stuff I enjoy. Life isn't about struggle. It's about being happy. But I didn't realize that until, like I said, I'm 59, probably in my early to mid 50s. And so I understand everything you're saying, man. Totally. Exactly.
That can be an engine. It's a drive that we have, that maybe people like us have, and I recognize it in some people. And sometimes this person's like me. He can tough 14 hours in the studio and be focused and not eat and not sleep, but get things done.
Right.
And I have a pride in that too. But it comes from a trauma.
Yes.
It comes from a wound.
Yes.
So you have to make something good out of it, but it sometimes health a health risk or a mental health and overall. So yeah, it's the balance between both that is hard to find, I guess. But times heals.
Yeah,
As
totally.
cliche as it sounds.
Yeah, it does. It's interesting. This is the first time in my life, maybe about 8 months, about a year ago, I stopped setting my alarm because I never slept all these years. I'd be up 5 a.m. every day. And I'm like, man, you know what? And then I started studying, as you get older, you start, paying more. I've always taken care of myself, but really digging into what makes, good health and bad health. And sleep is like literally the number one most important thing you need. And I'm like, shit, my mentality was always, man, I'll rest when I'm dead. Right.
Mm-hmm.
But it turns out sleep is incredibly healthy for you, man. So I now sleep 8 or 9 hours every night, which is amazing.
That's great. You asked me about dark times. At 24-year-old, I did a burnout because I was working 40 hours in a music store. I was playing in 12 different bands, and on weekends that I didn't have gigs, I would do sound gig as a sound engineer,
Oh my God.
And I trained myself to sleep only 3 hours a day for 2 years in a row. And that was how I could do all of this. But then I crashed really hard. And it took me about a year to get back on my feet completely. But during that year, I decided to move to Montreal and play in a band called Gorguts, write an album with them, and go on tour. That was my
that was your
relaxed
vacation.
year. Yeah. And I had no money. We didn't eat every day. We would go pick up some cans and sell it at the convenience store to get a hot dog at the Ronald's hot dog. And but it was one of the most happy and strange time because I was free.
Yeah.
I was free. I was playing music, and there was a tour coming and an album. So all the money struggle and all the burnout thing. Of course, it was not perfect. I struggled in many ways, but I was doing what I liked. So that, again, music saved me.
Save you, yeah.
And last year I did. I did another burnout.
Oh, I know.
20 years later.
Tell the story because I heard, yeah.
And so I wrote with the band. We wrote Synchro-Anarchy and we recorded it in 2022. And not long after that, I started to. I was teaching at the same time, full time, going to the studio, teaching, playing gigs with other bands, blah 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 blah. Going to Christmas, and then I crashed again for the second time in my life. But I knew the signs.
Yeah.
In advance. I recognized them. So I went to the doctor, and the doctor said, you have to stop right now working. So I had to take care of, because insomnia is part of it, of course. Insomnia, because your hamster is spinning the wheels nonstop.
Right. You get more ideas and more ideas and more ideas. Yeah, it's hard to.
And anxiety about how am I gonna do this and blah blah blah. And so I started to drink to sleep. Drink a bottle of wine so I could sleep 3 hours and go back to work, stuff like that. So it was really going bad, but I recovered faster, even though I was older, and because I saw the signs.
Good.
And now I'm okay. We went on tour, like just when I got a bit better, and when I got on tour, I got fully recovered.
That's great, man.
Even though it's very tiring mentally, it's and emotionally, touring and meeting with people and playing shows, that's what I like.
Right.
So but now I'm really, it was not a big deep dive into total darkness, and I was able to read the signs, and I do more sports than I used to do when I was 20, bicycle, and I do many different things that interest me, and I try to balance everything so it doesn't happen again.
That's great.
I watch myself not to cross some lines that are irreversible.
I think, like, one of the things with me, because when you grow up with that stress, that's, for me anyway, that was my norm. So I realized
Yeah.
over my life, not intentionally, I would make decisions that would be stress, that would ultimately create stress. But in my mind, it was like, hey, I'm Craig Garber. I can get through anything. And then when I was in my 50s, I said, I got to a point, I'm like, you know what? I think a lot of this stress in my life is my fault. Like if life throws you a curveball, you can't do anything, but you don't have to make stressful decisions on top of that. So now, like, my first question when someone says, hey, do you want to get involved in a project or just anything? Do you want to do this? I say, is it the path of least stress? And if it's not, I don't do it. As I just don't want to deal with that. I dealt with it for a lifetime, and so
because it's normality. That's what you
yeah,
know.
chaos, right? That's what I know. That's what my norm is, chaos. So I had to like literally reprogram my whole thought process over a several year period.
It's hard.
It's very hard. But I'll tell you something nice. My wife, my middle child, my younger son went to go buy a car the day. I think my wife went to take him for a ride because his old car got in an accident. Anyway, he said to her, he's been out of the house. They've been out of the house 5 years at least. And he said, Mom, I noticed Dad got a lot nicer when we all moved out. And she said, it's not anything to do with you. He just worked on a lot of things to clear up the stress of his own life from his own past. And I was so happy they said that he said that. I was like, I mean, not that I don't think I was an asshole before that, but I was not as relaxed as I am now, and
we are not always the best version of ourselves.
Yeah, man, I wasn't. Thank you. I was not the best version of myself. So I was really happy that he said that to her. And so, man, thank you for sharing all that. I appreciate it, man.
Thanks. Appreciate it too.
Musically, is there anything you haven't done yet that you'd like to?
Yeah, a lot.
I know. I figured that.
Yeah, I wrote, something that I've studied a bit at university was orchestration, writing for strings, writing for big bands, brass section. So I did that in Voivod when we did the End of Dormancy, when we were invited to the International Jazz Festival in Montreal to perform. I figured something special, for the event would be great. So I wrote this brass quintet arrangement for the End of Dormancy, which is on vinyl now, and we played it live during the Jazz Fest, and there was a open section for a saxophone solo on diminished harmony, symmetrical harmony, and people went totally nuts. And so for people that was not attending the show, most of the fans everywhere in the world, we recorded the version for the video, official video. And I also, on the same album, for the song Sonic Mycelium,
love that.
At the end of that track, there's a string quartet. So I wrote an arrangement for strings at the end, which is the fade out. The band fades out and the string quartet fades in, and it finishes with the string quartet. So that's the kind of stuff that I would like to do more, and being able to write for bigger piece of orchestra. And so that if there's time, if there's something that I would really dig more into, that would be composition and arrangement for writing for bigger ensemble, and maybe conducting, because I realize I don't have any experiences. I mean, I do, but it's not at the level that I would want to. And I would like to dig more into playing in a jazz trio or jazz quartet as well.
Wow.
Improvising, and maybe for in a couple years, and maybe I'm interested in music for video games as well, but I'm not a gamer, so that's another
No, but if you're doing orchestrations like that, what was going through my head is that you should, I know you've done some licensing. I would pursue that more, because that's an arena for you to do stuff like that, if that's what you want to do.
I mean, if something that I'm interested in, for sure. I have to find a way with touring and teaching, and maybe I have to drop some stuff to make it happen. But it's something that I was always curious about. Yeah,
That dirty
there's
4-letter
been
word, time, right?
yeah.
I hear you, man. So I've seen you play your Bond Dan Mongrain guitar, a couple of Les Pauls. I said a Telly, but that's not correct now. And a red Strat on Jurassic Rock. What is your go-to guitar right now, and what other two guitars would round out your top three?
Well, now working with Bond instrument guitars, he was tired of seeing me playing a Les Paul and a Strat, so he made me one. He made me a Tele, he made me a Strat, he made me a Les Paul, and I have two Voivod models, chewy, pointy, sci-fi models.
Yes.
And so I'm all Bond instrument now. So I really like the Les Paul, the Tele, every one of them really. So when I have pop gigs or rock gigs, like in this weekend, I'm going to play an acoustic show with the formation, and then the next day I play with the 4-piece rock band in the bar.
Oh, cool.
So it's gonna be the Strat and the Les Paul that I bring, and maybe the Tele for playing the slide on one song, open E. For a blues song, and yeah, I'm full Bond instrument endorsed.
Very cool. Is that a 335 behind you?
Was that?
Is that a 335 behind?
This one is,
was that an Ibanez? What is that?
This one is the one I practice jazz with, and it's always near me. It's an Ibanez
Hardcore
artist.
Yeah.
A200, like John Scofield.
Yeah, I love those.
It's 84.
Beautiful guitar, man.
I love it. The action, the neck, everything is great. Sounds good as well. And yeah, that's when I play some. It's a hollow body, but not a big one. So I can play jazz, I can play rock, I can play fusion, I can play funk with it, I can play a lot of things. But it's always there.
That's cool, man.
So I just grab it and jam with it.
Tell me the best guitar and the best amp you've ever owned or played.
I must say this amp here, it's a Lapointe amp. This one here.
Yeah.
It's made in Montreal by a friend of mine, Lapointe amplification. It's a backbones, and I made a modification to it. I asked him to make a modification, so it's two exactly identical channel 1 and channel 2 are totally identical. I really like the channel 1, so I said, can you make me 2 channel 1? And the only difference is that there's coloration on the amp on the channel 2, which are not available on the channel 1. But I used it on the last record that's going to be out in July with Voivod. And I used it on the previous records as well, Synchro-Anarchy and the Wake. It's very versatile. So I'm gonna play with it for the acoustic gig. I'm gonna play with it for the rock gig I have in during the weekend. I play with this with Jurassic Rock, and I use it in studio for Voivod. Obviously, I cannot bring heavy stuff when we go to Europe because it's costly, and when we fly to the States. But when we have a tour bus to pick us up in Montreal, I bring it.
Spell that. So the L-A.
Lapointe, Lapointe.
Okay, thanks. That's awesome, man.
Very versatile. It can rock. It can melt your face with distortion and gain, but you can play the blues with it as well.
That's incredible.
The funk sound, the clean sound is very, very, very.
I love clean. Funk, man. I love hearing.
I love
music.
it too.
Yeah, it's so cool. So as I mentioned earlier, as I went through the progression of the Voivod albums you recommended, it was really interesting to hear the change from like thrash and punk metal to less punk, and then becoming more melodic and groove oriented. And then once you became more active in writing, more structured prog and metal songs, longer songs, and even on Synchro-Anarchy, where it was metal, the music really grooved. And it was really cool. And so I'd like to ask you about a couple of Voivod songs from the Wake, Sonic Mycelium. What an amazing track. When I listened to that, and I listened to it several times, I can almost see that like it's like an adventure, man. I could see that being the background music to like a sci-fi car chase or something. It was
Thanks so much. I'm very proud of that
a
track.
great track.
I'm gonna explain to you how it was built, because if you listen to the Wake album, there are the songs and the main themes, or the part of songs that I considered important. I modified them, disguised them, rearranged them to put them in chronological musical order in sonic mycelium, but in disguise. So maybe in sonic mycelium there's one or two riffs that are original from this very song, Sonic Mycelium, but the rest comes from the whole album. So it recreates, it's rewriting the story of the album, connecting the strong musical part, and sometimes you superimpose two different musical parts from two different songs together, and it works. So I was digging into that because the album was all recorded, but I thought it's not long enough. It's missing one song, and I started this song already. But I was working in college while the guys were in studio. The drums were done. I was like, fuck it. Because away the drummer is a one taker, he's going through the songs. We do some click tracks, which respect his natural flow, fluctuating tempos and all that's not a straight line, never. I actually record the jams at the jam space, and I do the click track with the natural waves of the version that we like, so it's organic. It keeps the natural tempo change, And so he ghost track. He could record the drums, and they were waiting for me for the last song, and almost saying maybe we don't need it, So during one weekend in 3 days, I wrote this song, bass, arrangement, layers of guitars, and I sent it with the click track, and so they could record it. And the string quartet came later, but basically it's that information from other songs that are rearranged in disguise, superimposed, that tells the whole album story in chronological order. And Snake heard that, and he decided to take lyrics from previous songs on other parts of different songs. So it's really a puzzle.
So cool.
A mycelium is the underground network of mushrooms, where mushroom grows, right? And so sonic mycelium, it's all intertwined, it's all connected, and it's all related to the song. So sometimes you have a melody from a song over a riff in this guy from another song with the bass part of the other song. So if you listen to the album very carefully, which a lot of fans do, the diehard fans will listen to it over and over again, and they'll discover, this idea I recognize from this song, and it's over. So it's a very interactive song at the same time.
That's phenomenal.
And then we were done with that track, and the album was over. And I think that was Francis Perron at Radicard Studio, the guy who mixed the record and recorded it. He said, well, maybe some strings will be nice here. I can hear some strings, and I was like, oh, I know exactly what you mean. and then I went, fuck, because it would mean more work,
Oh, that's
so I started.
a tough one.
Opened my music sheet and my pencil, and I started to write this string arrangement. And I have a friend who's a great violin player, so I submitted the arrangement. Is anything okay? Like, I didn't write for strings since university, so I wanted to make sure it was. So she gave me a little bit of advice in arranging it, and so we hired a string quartet, and I conducted. But
that's so cool,
without
man!
Any experience, but yeah. So that's that song. That's why it's a journey, and if you listen to it and you think, the thing you said to me is exactly what it is, even though maybe you didn't listen to the whole album, or but if it means to me that it works, and it I really appreciate it.
It's a great track.
For your words.
Really great track. On Synchro-Anarchy, the title track, this is what I wrote. All I could say is, wow, the musicianship here is phenomenal across the board. That was not, you talk about the syncopation and the changing tempos. That was not an easy track with the pauses, the accents, the syncopation. It was interesting. I listened to the track, but then I watched the video, and to watch you guys play this, that's when I realized, holy shit, this is really freaking difficult. And just the mechanics, the mechanics of the song. So what was how did you guys collectively, because when you're watching on the video, everybody is like spot on everything. I mean, and every part was complex there. It was not an easy song. What was like the biggest challenge to put that together?
Well, the song came about when the drummers had a drum beat idea in the jam space, and he figured, I'm going to remove 1/16 every 2 bars or something.
How do you think of
and
that?
I wanted to try it. So he went to his drum riser and he almost killed himself because his shoe was untied.
Oh my God.
And so he almost impaled himself with the hi-hat stand. And so it became like, we called it the Shoelace Incident. I wrote the Shoelace Incident on the demo.
That's great. The Shoelace Incident.
So we started to play the beat, and we started to have ideas, and I work on the song on my side. And of course, this just was before everything shut down and we could jam together. So after that, it was file sharing, and I had the syncopated part at the middle of the song was an idea of the bass player who sent me just one layer of syncopated rhythm, and I figured I'm gonna reverse it and put it on the guitar. So at the same time than the normal one. So you have all the answer, because I reversed it part A and B like this, but also inverted the rhythm, so it reads like this but plays like this.
Holy.
So it was so it's all answering to one another like a dialogue of syncopation. And away in his genius groove, Voivod drummer style went like, okay, I'm gonna simplify everything so it can groove. We can feel it.
I was trying
like that,
I kept trying to listen to the like, what tempo is this, man? And it's
just 4/4.
I said it feels like 4/4, but like it can't. It just was so difficult. I was like,
the parts, the guitar and bass part keeps you away from seeing the 4/4, but the drums keep you straight on it.
Yes,
it's like the opposite of I guess Meshuggah does that kind of stuff quite a lot, Meshuggah, but in a total different way. And I think even though it's complicated, you kind of can tap your feet anyway,
Yes.
And you said there's groove. Away, the drummer is really, really groovy, and that's pretty rare in metal.
Yes.
And he plays a little bit laid back. And I, at first, when I came into the band, I was pushing time a little bit because I played in Martyr, was very, very technical death metal and stuff, and the drummer was pushing the time a little bit. But Away plays a little bit behind the beat, and it gives a kind of a beef sound to the band and a groovy sound that you can hear in different style of music, like blues or 70s, I guess.
Sure.
It comes from the 70s. So it keeps the thing more organic, and his beat with a 16th note removed could allow me to do the alarm, morning alarm with So I keep doing that, but the 16th note is reversing, so I go up all the way. So it's ta 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 ta, and it feels the second bar is at all the ups.
It's tough
because
to
he's
stay
keeping
on
it
top
beat.
of, man. I was just so impressed by everybody's musicianship in there. That was a difficult beat to maintain, and everybody just nailed it on that video, man. And the song is great.
And the funny part is that we had to learn it for the video because this album we recorded, we composed remotely and we recorded like a studio project. Usually we jam, we improvise, we record, we work on things, but this one was a laboratory, and we did it in 4 months, like very, very compressed. Wrote the music in 2 months and recorded and mixed in 2 months. So
That's
when we
actually
arrived,
amazing that you were able to do that in 4 months. I mean,
that's why I had a burnout just after.
No, I mean, it makes total sense because that's an incredible amount of work. Just the compositions, the arrangements there are not easy at all.
I remember when we decided to go for it, we were all around the bonfire beside the studio eating hot dogs. Okay, we have an album to write. Okay, do we do it? What's the deadline? September. Oh my God. It was like July or something, or June. And we're like, oh yeah, do we do it? We have to. We knew it was gonna be super hard, but we won a Juno, for God's sake.
Yeah, and well deserved. Well deserved, man. It's an awesome record. And then Quest for Nothing and Planet Eaters, both of those tracks, first of all, the graphics in those videos, pretty intense, really good. And the lyrics for Planet Eaters are pretty intense, you know, buildings and buildings and more buildings. And basically, it's about how consumption and this desire for more, for everybody to have more, is destroying the planet. And I was curious how that track came about. And did you have Snake's lyrics in mind before you wrote the music? Or did he?
That's a good question.
Yeah.
Usually Snake always write his lyrics after the music is written, because the music gives him the vibe, and then he can how do you say, singing just a melody, like just humming over the songs while we're jamming, and then the melody lines comes out and creates itself, and then the lyrics comes from the melody line, the rhythm, and he starts to hear words and the mood of the song, and then he knows the subject. That's how he writes. So the lyrics was from the music, as always with Snake, and but the title, the temporary title that I put there was, I think, Planet Grinder or Planet Eater, because of the music riff, which is not existent in the song anymore. It was modified to become the song, but reminded me of a giant planet crusher, you know, in space that would destroy planets. Like you know, and so the title inspired him as well, the temporary title, and we kept it. And he started to write. And then the guy who did the video is Pierre Ménétrier from France. He was he's still a fan of Voivod, but he was a fan in the 90s. And he did a fan video of the song Nothing Phase for his class of graphic that he was learning. And he became a graphist, a professional graphist artist. And we saw his video because he found it back during the same period, and wow, what an amazing work. You know, computer work back then was not as simple as today.
No.
And so we wondered maybe he would be in to participate in doing the video. So the black and white video comes from all the drawings from Away, the drummer who does all the artwork for the band since the beginning. So all the drawings, but he animated it in the video and created more graphics so it fits with the lyrics, and I think it was amazing.
Phenomenal.
During the guitar solo, there's a kind of plongée in a field with the scarecrow and all that. I thought it was brilliant.
Great.
And for Quest for Nothing, I think it was one of the first AI video out there, and it's our Luc Leclerc who did it with this new technology, and I think it was influenced by the drawing of the drummer as well, but it developed itself with some parameters. I don't know how it works, but
so the video is done by artificial intelligence.
Yes.
Wow, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, he's always ahead looking for new technology, that guy. And so it was great because I think the AI fits with the
Oh,
sci-fi
totally. Yeah,
vibe of Voivod. So
totally.
it's a bit controversial, but as long as it, say the vibe is there.
It was great. Those tracks were both phenomenal. That's so cool that this guy, he was kind of like you in that he did this. He was a big fan of Voivod, was influenced by them in his career, which was not music but graphic design, and then he got to work with them, and that must have been so. You guys like kind of probably had some good chemistry together, I'd imagine.
Oh yeah, I
Yeah,
mean, we were blown away by his work
that's cool.
and dedication as well. It's all about the for the love, when
Yeah,
you feel that it's genuine and we're working for the same goal. It's not about the money, the fame, or anything. It's just about the art and expression.
yeah,
Anyway, it's really hard to make a living as a band. It's almost impossible now
yes,
to be successful enough to be able to pay all the bills for many many years. It's like being a hockey player in the National Hockey League. There's many many players for it, but not much that end up in the National Hockey League.
yes, absolutely. Dan, tell me your top three musical experiences you've had.
That's very
I
hard.
know.
I really I can't. That's really that one of great musical experience I remember is being I was a freelance touring guitarist for a band in Montreal called Cryptopsy for 1 year. They needed a guitar player, so I figured I would do it around 2005. And I was studying at a university at the same time, so I had to bring my homework on tour for 6 weeks.
That's funny.
And there was a jazz jam. There was a bar. We played on the one side, and on the other side there was a jazz jam with students of university. I don't remember the city. It might have been Pittsburgh. I don't know. And we did the show. The guys from the jazz side saw many people with long hair and gore shirt and death metal attitude outside the venue, and we played just one of the most extreme metal music there is. And then I brought a Telecaster with me to practice in the bus, and nobody knows me here on the jazz side. I'm very shy of going jamming usually. So I brought my guitar and I said, well, maybe there's an opportunity to play incognito. So I went there and there was some jazz playing with a double bass, a small drum kit, saxophone. And they asked me if I wanted to play. So, okay, I'm going to sit in. So I choose a song in the fake book, jazz. I think There's No Greater Love or something like that. And they started to play a rock and roll because they saw my look, and they started to play rock and roll. And no, I don't want to play rock and roll. I want to try a jazz standard. And so we started to play, and I did my best. And after it, they look at me. Let's play another one.
Ah, that's cool.
Like that.
Yeah, because they're looking at you and like
well.
the words and the music doesn't match here. Like
Exactly.
Yeah, right. I get
It was
that.
like,
I get that.
What's going on? And they wanted me to play. So I played another one, and then the teacher talked to me, and it was kind of a wow. Okay, maybe I learned something at university I could apply.
That's cool, man. That's funny.
That was fun. Another moment was playing in Quebec City, opening for Metallica.
Wow.
And like 5 years ago, and it's the biggest crowd I've ever seen in my entire life, and it was home too, so it was kind of a dream for me, especially to play opening for the biggest band in metal ever, but as well as at home.
Yeah, that's really special.
On a big open fields outside, filled with 100,000 people. It was very, very, very impressive.
That's awesome, man. And they probably loved you guys because it's a good fit. Sometimes you hear like these weird fits, like I don't know, like Jefferson Starship opening from Metallica, and it doesn't, it's just something. But this is a really good fit for you guys.
I think so. I think so. Both bands are from the same era, same year, same kind of influence. And the bass player of Metallica played in Voivod after he left. For played in Voivod and Ozzy at the same time.
Yes. Yeah.
Played with Ozzy at the same time. So there was a connection there. But I was impressed by their work ethics. Actually, they were playing for an hour before going on stage and play for 3 hours on stage. I was really,
Wow.
really impressed with
Yeah,
them.
that's
And I met Hetfield during the afternoon, and later after the show, we met with Kirk, and he recognized the guys of Voivod. Of course, he's very friendly. So
very cool.
it was a good day. Yeah.
And number 3?
Number three, musical experiences. I mean, it's hard to pick one, but what comes to mind, maybe one of the best show I've seen in my entire life. 2 shows. The comeback of Bruce Dickinson in Iron Maiden in '98, first show of the tour, Quebec City, outdoor, and I was super impressed with their stage presence. And I'm a big fan of. I don't have the whole discography and know all the songs of Maidens, but seeing them live a few times, I'm very impressed with the frontman, Bruce Dickinson, and his voice and the way he can talk to the last person in the audience, and the way that he's a scream champion and he can write novels, and he speaks French, and he pilot planes, and he does everything that he wants in life. He's got a huge drive for making things happen, and all the running on stage, they're in good shape still, and they're rocking. And also another show that I went to see was a great show, was Stevie Wonder in Quebec City at the outdoor festival. It was quite a musical experience. It was almost like a mass.
Wow.
Almost spiritual. And musically, it was insane, and his voice was just perfect, and you could feel to be part of something special. Even though it was outdoor and I was far from the stage, I felt like I was in this bubble for 2 hours, and it was amazing.
What year was that? Ballpark.
2012.
That's awesome.
And he played a Michael Jackson song. The Way You Make Me Feel, or something like that.
Yeah.
It was amazing. Yeah.
It's an old one. Tell me another top 3. Sorry, top 3 Desert Island discs in no particular order, just for
Seaside.
now. What's that?
Yeah. Seaside of Cardiacs. The Seaside.
Yeah.
Cardiacs is a band from the UK.
Yeah.
It's not super well known, but it's totally insane. It's like, and Pondies, Cardiacs fans are called Pondies, but they don't like comparison, but I have to explain. So it's kind of Frank Zappa meets the Sex Pistols. It's two
That's
opposite,
pretty chaotic.
Yeah. But Tim, and he passed away last year, I think, Tim, the main composer, Tim Smith, genius, self-taught musical genius, and great band. His brother on the bass. They had different lineups, but all the albums are insanely good and always surprising, always unpredictable. And that's what I really like into discovering new bands. But the band doesn't exist, and it's not a new band. It started in the late 70s, I think, or early 80s, but great music. You have to check it out.
Is it Cardiacs, like Cardiacs, like a cardiac? Okay, yes. Cardiacs, just like it sounds. Yeah. Okay, all right.
There's a few videos out there too.
All right. What would be number 2 and 3?
Number 2, 16 Men of Tain. 16 Men of Tain by Alan Holdsworth. That's his last studio record. He couldn't finish the last one. He passed away in 2017, I guess. I think one of my guitar hero, not only for his playing, but for his reinventing of music harmony in his own way and music composition. He created his own world. You can call it fusion. I call it Alan Holdsworth. Yeah. It's just something else. And this album, is very mature. The sound, the production is one of his best. The songs are deep and more jazz oriented with a double bass trumpet sometimes, rather than fusion in his early years. And I think it sings great, and it's just one of his best album. I don't get tired of it.
Awesome.
So,
And the last one, this is always the toughest.
last one. Oh yeah. Well, I guess I would go with the Voivod album that I don't play on. Okay, I have to say it. It's part of what made me the musician I am today. So I would go with Dimension Hatras. Maybe tomorrow I would say another name, but Dimension Hatras is the fourth album of the band. It came out in 88, I think, pretty sure. And it's very progressive. There's themes that appear in one song that reappear in another songs. There's some Easter egg, and it's very, very proggy. It's when they were able to combine their speed metal thrash sound with more progressive sound and more developed language, and you can really hear that is where they found their ultimate voice that would bring them further afterwards.
Right on, man. I read that you're a vegetarian. I was curious, when did you switch to eating like that, and what's been the biggest benefit to you from this?
Maybe 13 years ago. Yeah, 13 years ago. I was already cutting a lot on meat and choosing bio and biological stuff, and farmer, farmer meat from local farmers and all that. And I all of a sudden I realized I don't really eat meat that much anymore. So, and I was kind of trying to figure out myself at that point in my life, and started to do a lot of bicycle exercise. I lost 50 pounds.
Oh my God. Wow.
I took yeah, that was the year I decided to take care of myself.
Good
really.
for you.
And thanks. I was like, I don't know if you, is it in pounds?
Yeah, if you're going to tell me kilograms, I have to get out my calculator.
It's weird in Quebec because some stuff we use pounds, and some stuff we use kilos, and some stuff it's all strange.
It's the same in England because my wife's from there. Yeah. So her mom, sometimes it's like they use Celsius, but they use pounds.
Yeah, exactly. Same here. It's like in between. So I was like 270 pounds, and I dropped to 210.
Oh my God.
Something like that.
You must feel great.
Oh yeah. Yeah, never.
Good for you.
I mean, I couldn't believe it. And since then, I maintained my weight pretty much the same. And so I started to be careful more about eating. And I'm not a true 100% vegetarian, because I'll have fish once in a while. I eat eggs once in a while, and maybe once a year I'll eat meat. I'm not against meat. It's not a religion for me. It's
just for you. It's a choice you made.
It's a choice. Of course, there's all the industry involved and treatments of animals, and I'm sensitive to that. But I think if every human on the planet could eat, I don't know, 30, 40, 50% less meat or fish, everything would be more balanced. But that's my opinion, and it's not imposing on anybody. It's just the way I see it.
It's interesting. I just switched over to pescatarian literally 3 months ago. And I don't, and I did it, and I wasn't like, I just said, let me just try this experiment and see how it goes. I'm not married to it. And I can't tell you how much better I feel. I mean, it's phenomenal. It's like I have more energy when I'm going to the gym. My cholesterol, which was not high, it was like 206. It dropped 30 points in 1 month. And I was like, holy shit. So something must be working right. And I don't miss meat. You know, I do miss ribs. I'm gonna have ribs on my birthday. I miss
And
some
that's
good
that's
ribs.
perfect. I mean, you find your own way to do it, and it's not like a straight
Yeah.
line. I think it's and me too. I feel better since then.
Oh,
My saliva changed. Like it's strange the things that you notice in your body after a while, and you're more body conscious, so to speak, and you're more listening to what your body needs in order to function well.
yeah.
So since I do more exercise and I eat better, I feel like my radar to know what I need as for food in order to achieve certain things in my day are more in tune and more clear than if I eat crap and fast food and soft drinks and stuff like that. It seems like it's a blurry vision. The connection
Yeah.
is less
I would
clear.
imagine. It was interesting. I find I'm not as hungry, oddly enough. I'm eating less, but I'm not as hungry. So like I used to eat because I lift weights. So I'm like old school. I eat for 30 years. I ate 5 times a day. Two of those meals were usually chicken. And now I eat 3 times a day, maybe. I just don't find myself hungry for dinner sometimes.
That's something I
It's
noticed too.
very
The
weird.
craving
Yes.
is not there, and the impatience that comes with
Yep.
it
Yeah, I'm
disappeared.
not right. I'll just have like an apple if I'm and hungry, or but it's not. You're right. That intense of shit. I'm ravenous. I've got to tear into an animal immediately. Uh,
I
yeah,
remember times on tour where I was like very grumpy because I was hungry, and I was becoming an asshole with my bandmates because I was
yeah.
hungry. And maybe it happens again to be an asshole with my bandmates, but it's not for
Not
the
for the
same
same
reason
reason, right? You've
anymore.
eliminated hunger as a reason.
Yeah, I mean I don't remember now because it's been 13
That's a
years,
long
but
time.
you talking about it,
Yeah.
I was like, yes, that's true. That's totally
Yeah,
true.
and I don't
Same
understand
here.
why, because I'm eating so much less. So you'd think I'd be hungrier, but I'm not. It's just strange. And I'm eating, like I said, I eat fish almost every day, and
Mm,
I'm not like you too. I'm not like it's not a religion. I don't care, and I don't, I think it's better for the planet, but that's not why I did it. And like everybody do
mm.
your own thing. But I agree with you. If people backed off on meat, there'd be a lot more oxygen around, and blah blah blah.
Maybe we were be all less grumpy and impatient too.
Who the hell knows? I
You know.
can only speak for myself, and I'm really surprisingly, shockingly surprised how many
Mm.
benefits I've gotten. So,
Yeah.
um, t- most important lessons you've learned from getting older.
I like getting older.
Right on.
Yeah,
Except the
I like getting
physical,
older.
you like the mental, right? But the physical, maybe not. The
Yeah.
aches and pains are extra you could do without.
Of course, for me, maybe I'm turning 47 this summer.
Right.
It starts, I start to feel sometimes that
It really hits like when
physically.
you're like 51, 52, all of a sudden you're like, what the hell's going on? It's like your check engine
Mhm.
light just comes on more than it needs to, man. More than you want it
But
to.
I think that gives me the obligation to take more care, to make more exercise, to do more stretches, so it imposes a kind of routine
Hmm.
for me to get to stay in good shape and grow old in an healthy way. And I'm looking at sometimes I do quite long bicycle rides, and I see people in their 70s doing bicycle and they're great
Yeah,
shape, and I was like, it's very inspiring
totally.
to see it, and I hope I will do the same. So there is a because I thought when you hit 50, when I was a kid, I saw everybody in my family super fat. I thought it was inevitable, but it is not.
No, if you take care of
It's
yourself.
in your
Yeah.
hands, and you decide if the way you want to grow old.
Yes.
You decide if you want to eat crap or you cook.
Hmm.
I cook a lot. I cook everything. I do my own butter, my own mayo, my sprouts.
Wow.
Fermentation. I love that stuff, and it takes my mind off music as well.
That's
But
the number one hobby for musicians, by the way. Cooking.
what? Cooking,
Yeah. I mean, I've
I can
had
believe
over
it.
900 guests, and by far, the cooking's number one.
And so, yeah, and getting older, I think it's good at better habits like that, and exercise and stuff. But as well as mentally and emotionally, I think we grow. We try to get to be better, and like we said earlier, deal with our own wound, and not scratching the scar over and over and over, but grow. And it's not perfect, and there's some old ghost appearing from time to time, but
Absolutely, man.
it's I think there's a beauty of getting older, and you become wiser. I guess you make better choice for yourself, and yes, it feels good so far.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I'm happy getting older. I've had it's been a lot. My older life is a lot more relaxed and fun than my younger life, for sure, man.
You would not go back.
Oh, not for a minute. No,
Exactly.
I certainly wouldn't
Yeah,
go back. I heard you mention that you enjoy foraging for mushrooms.
Yes.
And mushrooms is now becoming a really big topic. There was a big documentary, which I'm probably sure I don't know the name, but it's all over the internet.
Fungi or
Yes,
something?
yeah.
Yeah.
It was really interesting about the mycelium and how I was fascinated by that. But how did you get into picking mushrooms? And like when you go out, like I guess it's like anything else. You got to study what to eat, what not to eat.
Oh yeah,
because some of them are
you pick up.
poisonous.
Oh, deadly.
Yeah.
And I started a long time ago, more than 10 years ago. I have a friend who's always in the wood with his dog, and he started to be interested in plants and mushroom. And so I went with him, and I got hooked with the mushroom, and I bought some books and read a lot about it. I still buy. I just bought a book in the UK about mushrooms, and I have like 10 books about them, an encyclopedia, and I studied them for a while. Now I slowed down a little bit, but it's spring here and the morels are out, and I know the which kind of mushroom grow in which season and which tree they are communicating with, so to speak, and which are edible, which are not, and the one that I don't know, which is the majority, because there's thousands and tens of thousands of them. I don't. I can study, pick up, and see the color of the spore. I don't know the word
Spores.
in English. Spores, yeah, the color of spores, and identify them, and to make sure you can either eat them or just identify for the pleasure of it. And some Facebook group.
Oh yeah, I'm sure. Yeah, that's cool.
About mushrooms and sharing and stuff. So and when I found last year a spot where there's a matsutake mushroom. It's super rare here, and it's a Japanese kind of mushroom. It tastes and smells like cinnamon or spice bread.
God, that sounds delicious.
An amazingly aromatic mushroom, and it's big. It's one of the biggest, and yeah, it's something that I think is good for the brain. Going to walk in the woods in nature, you see birds, squirrels, some animal traces. You go in different seasons just because you have a motivation other than just walking in the wood, but you can pick up stuff and study plants, and it's very good. It's a healthy thing to do, and it's more. I don't know. I like to learn.
Yeah,
I like to study.
Yeah,
it's passion.
How do you cook that mushroom that smells like cinnamon? What do you do with that?
The best is Japanese use it in soups sometimes, and also in when they cook rice, they put the mushroom in the rice cooker.
Oh, that sounds
with
great.
A bit of soy sauce and a bit of mirin, and it's amazing.
God, that sounds. I'm like salivating
so
right
great.
now. It sounds delicious, man.
Also, there's a recipe with a kind of teriyaki sauce mixed. I didn't believe in it at first because there was too many flavors at the same time, but it enhanced the flavor of the mushroom. It's crazy. There's ginger and soy sauce, and I think mirin and a little bit of sake in the pan with a bit of oil to cook the mushroom. So you wait for the water to get out and the flavor to get in, and you eat it. It's insane.
Dude, that sounds so delicious.
Insane.
Wow. Couple more questions, Dan. Most fun thing you've ever done?
Most fun thing, going on stage for me is like the 1 hour, 1 hour and a half of pure pleasure, of let go of everything and live the moment, which I have a big hard time to achieve elsewhere in my life.
You know what? I was the same until I started playing guitar. And because I realized I can't play guitar as a relatively still new guitarist after 6 years. I can't play guitar and think about anything else. And it was funny because that opened the door for me to being able to be present in other things. And I'm so grateful for that. And it's funny because now I'm the easygoing guy in the house. And, you know, when someone's worrying about something, like, hey, man, you mean that's the future. You have just as much probability of things working out as not working out. Deal with it then, you know? And it's funny for hear myself saying that to others, because I was always the guy, you know, up in my head, like boom, 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 planning, you know, blah, blah, blah. And playing guitar really helped me to do that. So I understand.
Planning what could go wrong.
Planning, well, that's a childhood trauma thing too, because it's these expectations of you're always in survival mode, right?
Yep.
And so you're always like, well, I know this is going to fuck up and I need to have a, you know, but I've learned to tell myself after years and years of working on it, hey, Craig, you know, you have as much, and I literally talk to myself, you have as much likelihood as things working out your way as not working out your way. So deal with it then. And I have able to get a lot more inner peace from that. And it all started with playing guitar for me. So I know how.
That's great.
Yeah, it's really nice. And I feel very lucky that things kind of worked out like that.
I love that story.
And last question, biggest change in your personality over the last 10 years, and have the changes been intentional or just a natural part of aging?
I try to be more mellow, more let go, more confident in trust others. I'm struggling still,
sure,
but I think I'm easier to be around than I was, you know, in 10 years ago or 20 years ago. And but it was conscious thing, because it made me unhappy in the end, and others, of course, at first, but the others were the mirror of what I projected to them. So yeah, it's still hard sometimes. There's triggers, you know, that triggers behaviors that you don't really like to have, but it can happen. Maybe maybe less than before when it happens, but I think more easygoing. I try anyway.
Man, I can't thank you enough for having this conversation with me. It was a real pleasure and a real joy, and I thank you so much, and I'm glad to have met you. And thanks very much. Let me tell people where to find you. You mentioned there's a new record coming out. Talk about that.
Yeah, this year is the 40th anniversary of the band Voivod. So we recorded in last January at Radicard Studio with Francis Perron, the same studio we recorded the last two albums. We recorded a collection of old songs from pretty much all the albums, all the era of the band, actually, because all the album wouldn't fit on one vinyl.
God, no.
But all the eras of the band. We have guests on the record. We have Eric Forrest, who sang and played bass in the band for an era of the band, and also Jason Newsted.
Oh, that's so cool.
The track. Yeah, he accepted to play and was thrilled to play a track that he wrote with Denis Piggy d'Amour during his time in Voivod. And we wrote a new song on that record as well, and a cover of PIL, Public Image Limited, which is the song Home. We did a cover of that, which will be only on the CD version, though, not on the vinyl. And it's going to come out on July 21st. It's on pre-sale, I think, right now. And we're really excited about this because there's one song on that album, which is the very first song Voivod ever recorded.
Oh,
and it was on Metal Massacre with Metallica.
That's so cool.
In 82 or 83. And when we recorded it, and then when Snake had to lay down his vocal tracks on it, he realized, well, there's no lyrics sheet anywhere. And back then, coming from up north Quebec, French only everywhere here, we learned English on tour, not home. And so we heard the lyrics and we couldn't figure it out at all. It was German. It was not English. It was with the big French accent and strange lyrics, badly translated.
So what did you wind up doing?
So we tried to figure it out, but even with AI, as an isolated track, it didn't work out. We asked some English speaking person, and they said, "Sounds like German to me." So after a while, Snake thought maybe my mom has it because she's collecting all the Voivod
That
stuff.
is hilarious.
And so he called her sister to go to her mom at their hometown, Jonquière, up north Quebec, and she had the file in a drawer. Oh yeah, that's
oh my
it.
God, how funny is that? That is great. His mom had the lyrics.
Mom had the lyrics.
That's great, man. That's a good story. What's the record called?
The record is called Morgoth Tales, which is a reference from Morgoth was the imaginary land or planet that Away created at the beginning of the band to create the Voivod character, which is a nuclear vampire that defends planet. And Morgoth Tales also is referring to Morbid Tales, which is an album from the band Celtic Frost in Switzerland. They toured together back in the 80s in America, and so it's a kind of a reference to that as well.
Very cool.
And the new song is called Morgoth Tales, and it has I don't know how many songs actually, but like songs from all the eras plus a new
That's
one.
really cool. Must have been fun to go back and record all those old songs.
Oh, it was so much fun. After the Synchro-Anarchy sessions that were very stressful, we just went there and jam, and it was all some of the songs we never played together or they never played again. So there's a song Nuage Fractal from the Angel Rat album, which is probably the less heavy they did. Sounds more like floating ethereal. Yeah. And some of the stuff are really thrash speed metal from the early years, like Thrashing Rage on the Roar album, which sounded hard. The mix was kind of aggressive, so the new sound in the studio makes it more audible, the elements, the little details, but we tried to keep the young vibe, so to speak, as well. And I think it sounds really, really good. I can't wait for fans to comment on it.
That's awesome. And it comes out July 21st. So go to voivod.com to pre-order it. Also check out Dan online, danmongrain.com, MONGRAIN. There is also Dan's first band, Martyr. Everything they did is up on Bandcamp. So go check that out. There's a Voivod bio coming out in a biography book. Jeff Wagner. Any date? Any idea when?
No idea, but could be early 2024 or maybe late this year. I'm not sure. There's a book. It's being written though.
And the Voivod documentary, what's the status of that?
Yeah, there's a documentary that's been in works for years, and of course the pandemic slowed it down, but it's getting edited and more footage being added and more interviews still. So it's gonna come out eventually, and it's better that we wait a little bit more because it's gonna get the thing more interested and more structured and all that. So it's very exciting. I saw just snippets of it, and it's going to be a good watch, I'm sure, for the fans and me, and even for people that don't know the band, they could discover something like a very interesting story.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah.
That's awesome. All right, man. Well, hang on a second. I'm going to sign off. Any final words of wisdom? Perseverance. Right on, man.
That's all. That's the
well
word.
said. Well, hang on a minute, Dan, and then we'll wrap up. Everybody, thank you, and thanks for all your time. Thanks for everything, being so open and cool and sharing everything and all your stories, man. Thank you very much. Everybody, thanks so much for listening. If you enjoyed this, share it on your social channels. We appreciate your support. Thanks very much to Dan Mongrain for spending time with us, coming on the show. And most important, remember that happiness is a choice, so choose wisely. Be nice, go play your guitar, and have fun. Till next time, peace and love, everybody. I am out. Dan, thanks for everything, brother.